Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that I think is overdue. It's something I should have just talked about long ago. I'm going to talk about basic pattern drafting tools for the beginner. What are the things you need to actually draft your own pattern to fit your body shape? You don't need to buy expensive things to be able to draft your pattern. In fact, everything I'm going to show to you are really cost effective. All you need is a passion to want to draft your own clothes. And then you get this. These are the things that I started with. These are the things that I still use every day when I'm doing my pattern drafting. So let's go straight to my cutting board and let me show you all my pattern drafting tools that I use and that you may need if you have a passion for drafting your own clothes. Now, these are all my pattern drafting tools. That's the way I've laid them out, and I'm going to talk about them one by one. I'm not going to make this video very long. It's just to let you know that there are some basic things you actually need if you want to go into pattern drafting, especially if you have a passion for it. And to also let you know is that you do not need to have very expensive things. It's just simple things that you can just use and then just get your patterns, draw your patterns for your figure to fit your perfect figure. So let me start explaining and talking about them one by one. The very first one I want to start with, of course, is pattern papers. Now, this is the pattern paper I use. You can also get a white one, but I use this one, and it's quite very, very affordable. You can even get them in a bookstore, or you can even get them from Amazon. It depends on you, but it's very affordable. It's not so expensive, and you can use it to create a lot of patterns for yourself. Now, this is a transparent paper. Most times I use this if I'm transferring a pattern piece. I'm transferring a pattern piece. I use it when I'm working with commercial patterns. Like these are commercial patterns I work with. This is a multi-size pattern. And what I mean by a multi-size pattern, you can get from your size 8 to size 16. So let's say if you're just one of these patterns, at least you need to transfer the particular size that you have onto another paper. And that is where these transparent papers come in. You may be wondering why am I talking about a commercial pattern? If you want to really learn pattern drafting, especially if you want to learn it by yourself, if you're self-taught, you need to know all about commercial patterns. I have a video that I did that I actually explained everything that has to do with the commercial patterns, understanding all the terms and all that, which is very important really if you're really going to go into pattern drafting, not just as a hobby, but let's say you want to take it a step further and you want to make it a business. It is good to know all the terms, that are involved in pattern drafting. That is why I really brought that in here. I will leave the link below this video about all these pattern drafting terminologies that you should know as a beginner. So now we are done with the papers that I use. As I said, commercial patterns are very important. You need to use them once in a while. At least it will give you an idea, or you can get a lot of tips from how to draft your own patterns. Especially if you want to take your pattern, way higher. You want to not just use it as a hobby. If you want to, go commercial with it, it's good you know much about commercial patterns. So let's look at cutting tools that you will need for pattern drafting. So these are my pattern making tools. And let me start from here. This is a rotary cutter in different sizes. Now, if you're starting out, this might not be so important for you, because when I started, I just used scissors. I didn't have any rotary cutter. I used paper scissors to cut my patterns. So, except you really want to do it. But one thing I love about this is that it gives you very sharp cuts. Very sharp cuts, especially if you want to cut to get very sharp edges, You can use this to do it. I use one for paper. I use one when I'm cutting my material. That's why I have two. And moreover, this one I use it in corners. Like if you want to do a curve, you want to curve out the armhole or something like that, I use a smaller one. And I use this when I'm cutting something straight. Now, these are all my paper scissors. I use these scissors for paper. As I said, these are my paper scissors. I have 3 of them. You must not have 3, you can even have 1. But what I do is that for this one, if I'm really cutting a particular place that is a little bit not too easy to cut, is, some crevices when you're doing your clothing, I use this little one. Then I use the main one to actually do the cutting of my pattern papers. These are paper scissors. Now, this is a tracing wheel. If you're working with commercial patterns, you'll need a tracing wheel to be able to trace the pattern or transfer the pattern to another pattern paper. Since you cannot use, I don't like using my commercial patterns directly like that, so that it will not get torn or so. You just trace it onto another paper and then use it on the paper that you trace it on. Now, these are some notches you need, especially if I'm marking some things on the edges of a pattern paper. There are some notches you'll see on a pattern paper. Let me see if I can. I normally use this actually to cut threads when I'm using my sewing machine, but it can serve a dual purpose. I use it to make some notches on my, when I'm transferring some pattern notches onto my pattern paper, especially from commercial patterns. You see that commercial patterns have some marks that actually helps you when you're joining your materials together. There are some notches they give you so that you know that, oh, you're supposed to join this side to this side or this side to this side. So this is what I use to make those small notches, to do it. I use this as an owl. An owl is actually something that I use it to point and make marks on my pattern paper, especially if I'm marking where to put buttons or where to put buttonholes, the width of buttonholes. If I want to transfer it from the commercial patterns onto the main patterns, I use this to do it. I just use it to improvise. This is what I normally use actually to pierce leather when I'm making some leather bags or leather purses. So I just use it to improvise. If you want something like this, you can buy an owl to use it on your pattern paper. I just added my fabric shears here, my fabric cutting scissors. It's not really a pattern making tool, but at least you use it to cut your dress after making your pattern. So those are my pattern making hardware. I can't do any pattern without those equipments you see there. Those are my pattern making powerhouse equipment. So let's go straight to rulers. Rulers are so important when you're making patterns. Patterns deal with a lot of mathematics and multiplying and dividing and all that. So you need rulers, you need calibrated rulers, you need curved rulers, especially if you're curving out your armhole, or you're curving a neck, or you're curving your skirt, or your trouser. You need rulers. So let's talk about rulers. So my first ruler is this, my Omni Grid ruler. Very wonderful ruler. It's a little bit weighty. I normally use it really not as a ruler. Most times I use it when I want to cut using a rotary cutter, to just place it on the material to keep it in place and in line. And also when I want to do some biasing, I use these lines, in terms of measurement and ensuring that everything I need is exactly the size that I need it. So that's what I use this one for. Now this is a calibrated straight ruler, which is very important. We are doing pattern making, you need a calibrated ruler. As you can see, these are not the metal ones. The metal ones are expensive. That's why I'm showing you something that you can start with. They are not so expensive, but they serve the same function. This is a calibrated ruler. This is also a calibrated ruler, especially if you want to get this 90 degrees cut. If you want to do some cuts that you need 90 degrees. This is a calibrated ruler you can also use. And this ruler too, you can also use it for your buttonholes, markings and all that. You can also use it for your neck markings if you want. And for your skirt curves, you can also use this particular ruler. Now, this is the French curve. This is the French curve that you use for your armhole. If you want to trace out your armhole, you want to trace out your trouser crotch, you want to maybe do a neck. If you're tracing out your neck, you can also use this French curve. I don't even know why they call it a French curve, but it's called French curve. Very important and useful. And this also, I don't know what to call this, but I use this also for my skirts and trouser to curve it. I also use it. I use it also for pockets, cover of pockets. So that's what I use this one particularly for. And of course, don't forget your pencil and your marker if you want to use that. And last but not the least, these are some miscellaneous things that I also use. I don't have what I would call a pattern weight. I'm going to talk about it maybe for just a few minutes after this. But I use these pins on my pattern board just to put my patterns in place when I want to cut it or trace it. I just pin the edges, of the pattern. And sometimes I use this sellotape to put my pattern in place, especially if I'm using a lutterloh pattern making system. There's a pattern making system that I use, and I use sellotapes to tape down my patterns. So this is exactly what I mean by pattern weights. They normally come in different makes. Example, this is a pattern weight that is made of wood. This is another one that is made of glass, and this is another one that is made of metal. So whichever one you want to choose, it will work well for you. This is just to keep your patterns in place, especially when you're doing your cutting. So with this, I have come to the end of this video, and I hope that you'll be able to get all your pattern tools together to, start on your pattern drafting journey.